Hey, are you a nurse? Do you have your own malpractice insurance? Or are you relying on your company's malpractice insurance? And this is a huge debate that many nurses have to go through. And in this video, we're going to be going over whether or not you should have your own malpractice insurance and outweigh the pros versus cons. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel, LifeofaPsychNP. If you are new to this channel, let me formally introduce myself. I'm Darty. I'm a board-certified psychiatric nurse practitioner, and in this channel, I go over several different topics related to nursing, nurse practitioners, starting your own private practice, psychiatric nurse practitioners. So if you are interested in any of these topics, feel free to subscribe. Make sure you like this video because it helped me out so much, and follow me on Instagram at LifeofaPsychNP. So you probably clicked this video because you're interested in finding out whether or not getting your own personal malpractice insurance is important. And at the end of the day, it comes down to you, whether you're an LVN, if you're an RN, if you're an NP, if you're a CNS, if you're a midwife, if you're a CRNA, or whatever type of nurse you are, ultimately comes down to you. And there are certain things that you want to be able to think about, but at the end of the day, you have to make the decision yourself. But I want to go over certain speaking points about actually getting your own malpractice insurance and if it's right for you or not. So the first segment I want to be going over is the reasons why you should get or consider getting malpractice insurance. The second segment is going to be going over the benefits of having your own malpractice insurance. And the third one are things that you should always consider, like points to consider if it's going to be important or pertinent for you, or if it's not going to be pertinent for you. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's going to come down to you, but these are certain things to think about. So without further ado, let's go. So in this first segment, we're going to be going over reasons to consider malpractice. So you want to be able to find out if it's going to be pertinent for you. But these reasons are pretty compelling, I'm not going to lie, and it's going to be short and sweet, and I'm going to make this video as short and sweet as possible. So the first reason why it's compelling for you to consider it is you're going to get coverage beyond your actual practice or your organization or your employer's insurance. Not everyone is an independent contractor and they're bound to have their own coverage, because some people are employees, and as nurses normally a lot of us are all employees from a company. So when you look at it from an employer standpoint, which I'm an employer, we have a group practice. So luckily for me, my group practice covers everyone individually just in case. So not only is it going to cover my group, but also going to cover the employees and even the independent contractors. But not every policy is set up the same. There's some policies where it only covers the employer. So if the employer was named in the lawsuit, it's only going to cover them. It's not going to necessarily trickle down to the employee. And if you wanted added protection, you might as well go towards getting your own personal one, because you don't necessarily know what they're covered for. Are you going to go into your job interview or go into your orientation and be like, oh, hey, by the way, what kind of coverage do you have as a hospital or as an organization? You're not going to do that, and because you don't necessarily know who you're going to be speaking to, and if you're going to be speaking to someone that's training you, they're not going to know either. So why not add that added layer of protection in getting your own personal malpractice insurance, right? And at the end of the day, it comes down to you. So the second compelling reason why you should consider malpractice insurance is it's the peace of mind, right? Insurance, we all have insurance for that peace of mind just in case anything were to happen. And in this case, you have to think about the whole potential lawsuit. Imagine going through the process and going through what already is a stressful event, but now thinking about, am I covered? Or is the company going to cover me? Are they going to be just protecting themselves? Are they even going to try to protect me? And you have to think about all of these things. So might as well go into an already stressful situation knowing that you're covered. So having your own coverage is going to give you that peace of mind, knowing you have that safety net just in case anything legal comes around. Yes, it's going to be extra out-of-pocket costs, but at the end of the day, I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier for you to have that peace of mind knowing you're covered versus not knowing. And if the company is actually even gonna protect you. Now that we know the reasons to even consider, let's go over the benefits of having your own malpractice insurance. Yes, we talked about the coverage beyond the employer, we talked about peace of mind, but there are also aspects beyond that. So there's the legal representation. So you have to think about it. So usually when you have your own personal malpractice insurance, there are little details involved in that where they are going to be able to provide you with legal representation versus you going out there finding it yourself. And a lot of the times they'll have a certain allotment for the legal representation for them to pay someone to be able to protect you versus you coming straight out of pocket for someone that's going to represent you. So that's an added benefit. And there are also instances where the second reason is having tail coverage. So this provides you, depending on if you get a occurrence one or the claims made. So depending on that, if you get the claims, if you get the occurrence, you don't necessarily have to worry about it because it's just gonna apply based on what the event occurred or when the event occurred versus claims made. So even if you have a policy for a year with your claims made and someone tries to sue you later down the road and you end up not having this insurance, then you would have to purchase the tail policy, and a lot of times they'll be able to have the tail coverage. So just in case for a specific amount of years, they're going to cover you regardless of when they try to sue you, versus the occurrence is where they'll provide you with coverage during that time. So if someone sues you 10, 20 years down the road, regardless, and they're suing you for something that happened this year, you're going to be covered and you're going to be able to have that with these type of coverages. So, and it differs. So not everyone always gets either occurrence or claims made, and you're not going to necessarily know what's going to be happening or what kind of insurance you have, especially if it deals with an organization that might have gotten one coverage over the other, because realistically speaking, the differences between the two are vast and the differences in price are different. So if companies just trying to protect their butts now and just in case, they might get a cheaper one because they're trying to save money versus someone that's willing to pay more for the coverage because they're willing to pay more. And not everyone is gonna work for someone that's willing to pay more for that coverage. So it's definitely something to think about. And the last reason and the last benefit on this is actually getting control over what your policy is. So you get the control over whether you're choosing between the occurrence versus tail, or not tail, so occurrence versus claims made, and then you get customization on the amount that you're getting covered for. So a lot of kind of that baseline is going to be that 1 million per occurrence, and then 3 million for kind of that life or that year. So depending on which one you're going to choose, there's different types of rates available and cost and what they're being covered for. So you have that opportunity to be able to do so. And if you might want to make sure oh, I don't mind spending all this money and making sure that you have the highest amount, then you can go for that, because not many places will do it. They'll just go based off of what the state or the law or what they're required to have, and that might be the very minimum. And some people will just choose that because at the end of the day, people are going to consider cost, and in big organizations will consider cost because the more people you have under, the more people they have to spend, so they're going to go for the cheapest one. And this is a very, very important thing. So the more opportunity you have to customize something in order for you to protect themselves, then that's the added benefit of being able to have your own policy. So our third segment is being able to understand that there are things involved in getting your own malpractice insurance, and things involved where you need to be able to understand what your employer is covering for you, because not everyone thinks that malpractice insurance is going to be good for them, because there might be in certain situations where they are going to be covered versus there are other situations where they might not be covered, and that's where you always have to ultimately decide whether it's right for you or not. But these are things that you always want to be able to consider. So you have to consider your employer's coverage. If you work in a small organization where you're pretty close to your boss and you're able to kind of see certain things like clinics, like outpatient clinics, working in a different environment, or working in smaller organizations, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to find out what your employer's coverage is. And it's just straight up, just ask whoever you think is in charge or whoever is going to be considering to see oh, what is our coverage here? Is it going, if I were to be put into a legal issue, am I going to be covered, or does it only cover the actual hospital or the actual organization? And that's something you always want to be able to consider. You want to be able to consider the policy details within the employer's coverage. So you have to understand, okay, is it worth to be able to get your own personal one because of XYZ. But if you're going to the employer and you're able to see what the policy details are within theirs, and it says, oh yeah, it does in fact cover you, it covers your legal representation, it covers the company, and all those minor details like, oh, this is what the amount that I'm covered for, XYZ. And if you're able to see it and actually look at the policy, then you'll be able to kind of fully determine, because sometimes you always have to consider this main point is cost, right? You have to look at the cost and you have to outweigh the cost versus benefits and determine, okay, is it worth the cost of me paying XYZ amount of money? Because as nurse practitioners, as CRNAs, as midwives, the cost can get really high, upwards into like $5,000 to $10,000 or even more, depending on your specific role, whether or not you're like the independent contractor, if you're an employee. And sometimes when you're looking at the cost, sometimes you try to get one for your part-time gig, but in reality, you're still paying the full-time amount of money. When if you're paying like $5,000 to $10,000 a year and you're only making $1,000 a month, it doesn't make sense, right? So you have to always look at it, and then you have to see what kind of benefits are there. Is it going to be beneficial for you to get extra money? And there's some people that will say like, oh, if you have the additional coverage, they can guarantee that they're going to try to go after you because they want to get more money. And I don't know if that's true or not, but at the end of the day, it's something you always have to consider if it's going to be worth it. And if someone sues you, are they going to have your back, or whatever the case is, right? And there's so many different things, and you have to always look at all of the cost, the benefits, and understand that yes, this might seem like you're wasting your money up front, but you never know what's going to happen. You're going to have certain instances where someone's just trying to sue someone. I've heard certain instances where someone was like 105 years old, they passed away, but they're blaming it on the psych meds, and they end up trying to go towards the actual person that's suing them. So they're trying to sue not only the company, but they're trying to sue the actual individual as well, because of whatever reason they came up with, but they're trying to sue them even though they were at the end of their life at 105 years old. So certain things will happen, and it's crazy kind of hearing about these things. And as a nurse practitioner and as a business owner, you start to hear and you start to understand and you start to see the importance of little details and being able to understand like certain policies. And ultimately, at the end of the day, depending on your employer, they're going to do what's best for themselves, but at the same time, depending on the employer, if they're going to be able to have all of these things involved, they're going to choose kind of what's best for them. Luckily, like I said, I'm in a situation where I'm able to get coverage not only for the company, not only for myself, but also for the employees and also for the independent contractors, just in case. I'd rather live with that peace of mind and knowing that I'm going to be able to cover myself and cover them and have their backs. But not everyone's the same. Not everyone cares about their employees. Not everyone cares about the independent contractors. And all they care about is themselves and their company. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people like that because all they care about is this. And not only people don't really care about all these other things, and it sucks. But like I said, ultimately it comes down to you. Personally, for me, I would get it, even though people say that, oh, there's a risk of them coming after you because they know there's additional money out there. Yes, that's the case, but maybe they know that they can only get so much from the company and they'd rather go after you because of that, because not everyone is in that clear mindset where they're going to want to do what's right or what they feel like is justice. People, all they see is a dollar sign and they see all the different ways, and unfortunately lawyers want to do and kind of take advantage of all of these things. But at the same time, like I said, at the end of the day, the peace of mind is going to be something that I want to live with. And already going through a stressful moment, I'd rather have that peace of mind knowing that this is going to be covering me. And there's always different resources out there and different types of insurances. So if you are going to be looking for a different policy, there's so many different policies out there. There's obviously the NSO, and there's Pro Liability, there's Berksey, CMNF. There's so many different policies out there, and at the end of the day, you want to be able to look at the cost and the benefits And if it's something like, oh, I don't want to spend too much money, but I still want to be able to be covered, get quotes from all of these different companies and even the smaller ones, because at the end of the day, it's going to help you out. And knowing like, okay, I'm only going to be paying like $100, $200, or maybe even spread it out like something that's large, like $5,000 for like NPs, or midwives or CRNAs, and maybe see if they have a way to be able to break down the payments either per month, or it's going to be per quarter, or just split amount of payments. And if that's going to help you out and give you that peace of mind, might as well just go that route. Like, it's pretty much similar to like that life insurance. Like, you want to be able to do it just in case and protect yourself versus life insurance protecting your loved ones. So it ultimately comes down to that. So at the end of the day, like I said, it comes down to you. Like, what do you think? Do you think you should get your own malpractice insurance? Leave your comments down below on what you think. And if you stayed this far, I appreciate everything. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the support. I know I haven't made a video in a while, but I appreciate it. And as always, have a wonderful day. Bye!